Throughout this course, we'll be looking at a lot of distributions, and so one of the things that we need to make sure that we pay attention to is the shape of a distribution. So when we're describing data, there are three main parts that we describe: the shape, center, and spread. And in this video, we'll talk specifically about the shape. So there are three questions that we should ask ourselves. Is first of all, does the histogram have a single hump or several humps? Is it symmetric? And are there anything unusual that we should note? So looking at the humps are called modes, and modes are just whatever value occurs the most frequently. So looking at this first histogram, this is unimodal, uni meaning one, meaning that there's just one mode. Here, this is bimodal. I can see that I've got a hump here where a lot of values occur, and a hump here where a lot of values occur. So this is bimodal because there's two. This one, notice it's not exactly the same all the way across, but we're still going to call it uniform because for the most part, there's no curve up or down. Multimodal would be three or more humps, but again, notice I'm looking just at what's occurring the most often. I wouldn't call this multimodal, even though there are some that stick out above the rest. In the same way, we're just looking at the overall shape of the graph. So here, if I looked at the overall shape, there are two humps. There's one hump here, and there's really no humps here. Next, I would look at how symmetric my distribution is. So symmetric means that essentially I could draw a line down the middle and fold it in half, and it's not going to be exact, so don't look at something to be perfectly symmetric. A lot of times we're going to end up with things like this, where as you can see, I've got some values that are a little bit further away than the rest. This is called skewed left. The skew is always in the direction of the longer tail, so this would have a long tail. Most of my value are over here, and then I've got some extras over here, so it's skewed left. This is skewed right because again, I've got some values over here that don't fit with the rest of the data. And then any unusual characteristics would be outliers or gaps. So an outlier would be something that doesn't really fit with the rest of the data. Just because there's a gap doesn't mean there's an outlier, so be careful. We will talk about some statistical ways to show something as an outlier. An open space would be a value like this. So here I've got a little distribution here and a little distribution here. So it would be interesting to know what this is a distribution of, so that we can see why would there be a gap in between. So let's take a look at this histogram and see if we can talk about the shape. So looking at the shape, I see that it seems to be unimodal. Okay, so shape being, is there one mode, one hump, or more than one hump? So it seems to be unimodal. In addition, I see that I've got some outliers here, so I would definitely note the outliers, and I would also note that it's not symmetric, but that it is skewed to the right because I've got a large tail over here. So the distribution is unimodal and skewed right. There's a gap from around 3,000 to 7,000, so notice I'm talking about kind of in here I've got a large gap, and then there appears to be an outlier at about 7,000. So this is how you might describe the shape of this graph.